And this idea of presenting Trump as a victim here, a victim of a witch hunt, is ridiculous.
But Bill Barr I think he's more weak than anything else. And now he goes and he sits down, and if they can find a chair for him, because it's not that easy.
Donald Trump is screwed. And that's not me saying it. That's Trump's own former attorney general saying it, Bill Barr, who was on Fox News Sunday for a interview breaking down this case. And he had quite a few things to say about Trump and this indictment. So I'm going to get to several clips from that interview. I'm also going to get to Trump's reaction to him, which, of course, is as measured and as rational as usual with Trump. But first, here, this case. So, of course, this is over the indictment, the new indictment from, I think, Thursdays when the news broke. This time over his retention of classified documents and a conspiracy with the top A to hide them from the government and his own attorneys for a total of 37 felony counts. Now, that includes 31 charges of unauthorized retention of classified information about the nation's defense, a violation under the Espionage Act. If found guilty, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But there's also, I'll get to more analysis maybe later on, but I've discussed this already. Trump is the best person to lose against Biden. So the best case scenario here is if Trump wins the primary, goes up against Biden, loses, and then goes to jail for the rest of his life. That is hopefully how things all play out here. But if he gets put in jail before the end of this primary, Democrats should be worried. But that's a separate conversation. A little more on this indictment before I get to the first clip from Bill Barr. So according to the indictment, documents Trump took included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, U.S. nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the U.S. and its allies to military attack, and plans for a possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. So clearly documents that Trump should not have kept and kept denying he had. But let's get to the first clip from Bill Barr here, where he throws out any idea that this is some sort of witch hunt.
I was shocked by the degree of sensitivity of these documents and how many there were, frankly. And so the government's agenda was to get those, protect those documents and get them out. And I think it was perfectly appropriate to do that. It was the right thing to do. And I think the counts under the Espionage Act that he willfully retained those documents are solid counts. Now, I do think we have to wait and see what the defense says and what proves to be true. But I do think that even half what Andy McCarthy said, which is if even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning. And this idea of presenting Trump as a victim here, a victim of a witch hunt, is ridiculous. He was totally wrong. That he had the right to have those documents. Those documents are among the most sensitive secrets that the country has. They have to be in the custody of the archivist. He had no right to maintain them and retain them. And he kept them in a way at Mar-a-Lago that anyone who really cares about national security, their stomach would churn at it.
So Bill Barr, not holding back here. And that's going to become even more clear in the next two clips. But just a couple of quotes here. So he says, solid counts on the indictment. Even if even half is true, he's toast. Witch hunt claims are ridiculous. And Trump was totally wrong. Now, the reason why this holds so much weight, why this is a news story, is because it is Bill Barr. Barr has defended Trump countless times. I mean, again, he was his AG. So to have someone like this, who is a powerful figure within conservative circles, within conservative media, for him to come out and break down how the government acted responsibly, how Trump was wrong, this means something. It may not have any effect on viewers. Who knows where the hell the conservative viewer is at this point? I know a lot of them have moved on from Fox to other more far-right places that just kiss Trump's feet. But I'm not concerned about them because I want Trump to win the primary anyway, so who cares? Keep believing what you want to believe. But in terms of Barr's influence over conservative media, this does hold some weight. because you still have people on Fox News defending Trump. So when you have someone like Bill Barr come in and discredit all their defenses, it becomes increasingly harder to defend Trump on that network. And this is, a rare case where you're actually seeing a conservative be completely honest about where Trump sits in this indictment. So let me get to the next clip. And before I do that, just to properly set this up, the National Archives, and this is what sets this case apart from other presidents. The National Archives tried repeatedly to get documents back from Trump. The government says despite repeated attempts to get the documents, Trump failed to turn all of them over before the FBI seized them. Trump knowingly hid documents that he was being asked to return. There is no other parallel like this in any other case of former presidents holding documents. He kept documents. He's on tape saying he has secret documents. Like he's there. He's screwed. If everything works out the way it should, he is screwed. The real question is just the timeline of it. Is he going to be screwed before he wins the primary? Or is he going to be screwed after the primary, before the election? Or is he screwed after the election? Like that's really the only, I think, right now, the only question. Of course, there are other cases that still have to be adjudicated, like the whole Georgia case where he's on tape discussing find the votes in Georgia. Like, there's other stuff to come. Let's get to this clip now with Bill Barr discussing how the government acted responsibly.
I think the government acted responsibly. They gave him every opportunity to return those documents. They acted with restraint. They were very deferential to him, and they were very patient. They talked to him for almost a year to try to get those documents, and he jerked them around. They finally went to a subpoena, and what did he do? According to the government, he lied and obstructed that subpoena. And then they did a search, and they found a lot more documents. And I don't think they're even sure now whether they have everything. So they acted in a very patient way, and what they were met with was, according to the government and the indictment, very egregious obstruction. Now, we can't forget here that this entire thing came about because of reckless conduct of the president. If he had just turned over the documents, which I think every other person in the country would have done, they're the government's documents. They're official records. They're not his personal records. Battle plans for an attack on another country or Defense Department documents about our capabilities are in no universe Donald J. Trump's personal documents.
I think this is the most animated I've seen Bill Barr. He normally doesn't have this much emotion, but he seems to really be enjoying this. Of course, while Barr has defended Trump countless times in the past, they've also had some disagreements. So maybe this is a time now where Barr feels like he can just let loose and just, discuss reality. Also, keep in mind, this is maybe his attempt to try and rejuvenate his own career. After he attached himself to Trump, it definitely hurt his ability to be taken seriously in any other kind of space apart from, conservative media. So maybe he's attempting now kind of like win his way back into that. But regardless, what he is saying is true. So this is also why it is impossible for Trump to defend himself against any of it. And when I get to his clips, you're going to see he doesn't. He can't. There is not. Trump is not correct. Trump is wrong. So there is no way that he can actually defend himself with any kind of real defense, because there is no defense of what he did. Now, before I get to the last Barr clip and then to Trump's response, these photos, in case you haven't seen them, I'm going to show a couple here, are just hilarious. Like the stuff that was left out in the open. These are classified documents. We're talking military secrets, foreign intelligence secrets, nuclear secrets, like sitting out here on a stage in the Mar-a-Lago ballroom. But it gets funnier. Here are more documents in the washroom. They're apparently in the shower. They're right there beside the toilet. Someone at some point likely took a shit beside the nuclear codes. Okay, maybe not that far, but definitely some nuclear secret. I discussed earlier what's in these documents. Like, out in the open for anyone who's here just to like go through them. It is so wild, absolutely wild, just how far a Republican has to go for there to be some accountability, maybe. Again, we're going to have to see if he actually is, goes to jail. But look how crazy you have to be as a Republican for there to be some repercussions. Now, let's get to the last Barr clip where he reacts to the idea that, oh, but how about Obama? How about Hillary? How about other presidents? Didn't they do this too? He completely destroys that argument.
But when you think about somebody like President Obama or President Clinton, the sock drawer case with President Clinton,
yes.
They'll point to these and say, listen,
so there are
other
two big
documents.
lies, I think, that are out there right now. One is, these other presidents took all these documents. Those were situations where they arranged with the archives to set up special space under the management, control, and security provided by the archivist to temporarily put documents until the libraries were ready. These were not people just putting them in their basement, okay? And the second thing that the president, this idea that the president has complete authority to declare any document personal is obvious. It's facially ridiculous. That opinion had to do with the distinction between official records, which are records prepared by government agencies for the purpose of government action, and personal documents as opposed to official documents, which are things prepared by the president, such as a diary or notes, which are not used in the government's deliberations. And yes, as to the second class, stuff that the president himself generates, the president has some discretion. But these are official documents. It's inarguable. The president's daily brief provided by the intelligence community is not Donald J. Trump's personal document, period.
In a shocking twist, I have not seen anyone do a better job than what Bill Barr did here, breaking down this case and why Trump is likely going to be very guilty. Now, let's get to Trump's response. I'm not showing you this for, I guess for context, because it's important to show you the other side, but really for our own humor, to enjoy this comedy here. So Trump responds saying, virtually everyone is saying that the indictment is about election interference and should not have been brought, except Bill Barr, a disgruntled former employee, quote unquote, and lazy attorney general who was weak and totally ineffective. He doesn't mean what he is saying. It's just misinformation. Barr is doing it because he hates Trump for firing him. Why is Trump in quote? Okay. He was deathly afraid of the radical left when they said they would impeach him. He knows the indictment is bull. Turn off Fox News when that gutless pig is on. Isn't that interesting? In a moment of true honesty and exposing himself here, he's telling you, oh, don't even listen to him. Turn it off. Turn it off when he comes on. Yeah, because you didn't refute anything Bill Barr said here. Look, I'm not going to defend. I don't like Bill Barr. I would hope that's clear. But for him, for his voice in this case, I do think it's important to bring this up. And for your defense of what Bill Barr is saying, to call him a gutless pig and a disgruntled former employee and lazy, none of this is a defense. Trump has nothing to work with here, which is where we get to the next set of clips. I'll just put this all together. There's going to be several clips from a interview where Trump trashed Bill Barr. This is on Roger Stone. I guess he has a radio show somehow. But here are these clips of Trump responding to Bill Barr.
This thing is a disgrace, and virtually everybody other than a lowlife like Bill Barr, who as you know, I terminated because he was gutless. He wouldn't do what you're supposed to do. I think he's a coward who didn't do his job. He was desperately afraid of being impeached. You remember when the Democrats were saying we're going to impeach Bill Barr? There was no reason to impeach him, but they were going to impeach Bill Barr, and he was petrified of being impeached. I said, I got impeached twice, and my poll numbers went up. Not so bad. But Bill Barr I think he's more weak than anything else. And now he goes and he sits down, and if they can find a chair for him, because it's not that easy, and he sits down and he just bloviates, and it's disgraceful. It's actually unpatriotic. It's so bad for our country. So when I talk about a slob like Bill Barr, just a stupid person in a lot of ways. This is really not the standard. We've had tremendously successful people, but some we haven't. And we cannot afford to have cowards. We need strong people.
I don't have any Trump supporters in my life, thank God, but the question I would ask is, if Trump is so brilliant, why has he fired almost every person he hired? If he's so brilliant, then why doesn't he realize he's hiring all these stupid, weak, low-life slobs when he's hiring them? It's one thing if it's one person, two people, but everybody, over and over, firing people from the same position, get someone else in there, fire them, get someone else in there, fire them. There's some people's brains are mush, apparently, and there is no reasoning with them. But Trump's defense here, I mean, there is no defense. His defense is, oh, Barr is a lowlife, a coward, he's weak, he's a slob, he's a stupid person, gutless, and this is my favorite, quote, if they can find a chair for him because it's not that easy. Trying to allude to Barr's weight, I guess. I'm going to put a picture up of Trump and Barr. Trump looks bigger to me. So, I mean, at best, it's a wash, and they're the same weight. But the idea that Barr is a larger man than Trump, very weird for Trump to attempt to make a fat joke when he is larger than Bill Barr. But a couple last things here. There's also some more individuals on Fox that are acknowledging reality. Fox News legal analyst spells out peril for Trump. He could die in prison if prosecution proves just one count, speaking to Trump's age and how each of these counts is like 20 years. And then last thing here, just on what the chances are of this all getting done before the election. So special counsel Jack Smith said Friday his office will seek a speedy trial, but many legal experts, even Trump critics, are skeptical Smith's team can complete a trial before the election, especially given Trump's long history of maneuvering to delay legal matters. Ty Cobb, a former lawyer for Trump during his White House years, who has become an outspoken critic, told Axios that it will be very difficult to get this case tried before the general election, but not impossible. Again, the more I think about it, the more I think it's going to be tough for any Republican, and not because Biden's a strong candidate, because he's not. There's a new poll out today. It has Trump and Biden at the exact same approval rating. So, Biden not popular either. But if let's say Trump does go to jail before the election, are Trump supporters, Trump voters, which is at the very least half of the Republican base, are they just going to walk up and vote for someone else? Or are some of them going to be a little disgruntled and decide not to vote at all because, the whole party turned against them or whatever? I think that's very possible. So whether Trump wins and you have a higher turnout for Democrats because there is the anti-Trump vote, that built-in anti-Trump vote that came out in 2020 to get Trump out. Remember, Biden didn't win because he was incredibly popular and liked, though that you could argue for some voters, maybe that was a bit of it. But he won because Trump was president and people were done. So that's why that anti-Trump vote is incredibly popular or incredibly important in the next election. But if he's not there, there's no guarantee that Trump voters are going to come out to vote for the Republican nominee either. So either way, however this goes, it could just be a disaster for Republicans. But I also wouldn't take any of that for granted. Turnout is the biggest issue for Democrats. And the more you run unpopular candidates, the more you're playing with fire and have the chance of losing, as we saw back in 2016.